Imagine this. You walk into your bank one morning. The same bank you've trusted for years. The same smiling faces behind the counter. The same logo that promises stability, security, trust. But what if I told you that while you were sleeping, someone in that very bank was opening accounts in your name? Credit cards you never asked for. Savings accounts you didn't know existed. All without your knowledge. All without your permission. This isn't a hypothetical nightmare. This happened to millions of Americans. And at the center of it all was one woman, one decision, and one devastating question that still haunts the banking industry today. How far would you go to hit your numbers? Welcome to the story of Wells Fargo's fake accounts scandal, a tale that destroyed lives, shattered trust, and revealed a terrifying truth about what happens when ambition devours ethics. This is the story of Carrie Tolstedt, the chief marketing officer who lost everything. But more than that, this is a story about all of us, about the choices we make when nobody's watching, and the price we pay when those choices come to light. Stay with me, because what happened at Wells Fargo could happen anywhere, maybe even at your company, maybe even to you. Let's rewind to the early 2000s. Wells Fargo isn't just a bank, it's an American institution. The stagecoach logo, the Old West heritage, it represented something solid, something you could count on in an uncertain world. And Carrie Tolstedt, she was living the American dream. Rising through the ranks of one of the nation's largest banks, Tolstedt embodied success. Smart, driven, relentless. She climbed the corporate ladder with precision, eventually landing the role of Senior Executive Vice President of Community Banking, one of the most powerful positions in the organization. But here's where the story gets interesting. Here's where the pressure begins. Wells Fargo had a motto, a mantra that echoed through every branch, every boardroom, every morning meeting. 8 is great. 8. That was the magic number. 8 products per customer. 8 accounts, 8 services, 8 touch points. Because if you could get a customer to hold 8 different products with Wells Fargo, they were yours forever. Statistically, they'd never leave. It made perfect business sense. On paper, it was brilliant. But there was a problem. The targets were aggressive. No, scratch that. They were brutal. Branch employees were given quotas that would make your head spin. 20 accounts opened per day. 40 calls made. Constant metrics. Constant tracking. Constant pressure. And if you didn't hit those numbers, well, let's just say Wells Fargo had a way of making you feel it. Imagine coming to work every single day knowing that your performance was being watched, measured, compared. Your job security depended on those numbers. Your bonuses depended on those numbers. Your entire sense of self-worth began to revolve around those numbers. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a branch employee. A teller named Sarah. Let's call her Sarah. She's 26 years old, 2 years out of college, $40,000 in student debt. She needs this job. She has rent to pay, groceries to buy, a life to build. And every week, her manager pulls her aside. Sarah, you're falling behind. You need to be opening more accounts. Look at Marcus over there. He hit his target this week. Why can't you be more like Marcus? So Sarah tries harder. She smiles brighter. She pitches every customer who walks through the door. Have you considered our premium checking? What about a credit card? We have a fantastic savings account that could really benefit you. But here's the thing about real customers. They don't always want what you're selling. They say no. They say they're fine. They say maybe next time. And Sarah's numbers keep falling. So one day, Sarah does something she never thought she'd do. A customer comes in, an elderly man, a bit confused, not entirely sure what he's signing. And Sarah thinks to herself, what if I just open one more account for him? He probably won't even notice. It'll help my numbers. It'll keep my manager off my back. Just this once. Just this once. That's how it starts. That's always how it starts. Now, here's where Carrie Tolstedt enters our story in earnest. As the head of community banking, Tolstedt oversaw over 6,000 branches. 93,000 employees reported up to her. She was responsible for the division that generated the majority of Wells Fargo's revenue. And those 8 is great goals. They were her mandate, her strategy, her legacy. Under her leadership, the pressure intensified. The quotas became more demanding. The culture became more cutthroat. Branch managers who didn't deliver were replaced. Employees who complained were sidelined. But here's what's truly chilling. She knew. Multiple reports suggest that Tolstedt was aware of the problematic sales practices. Internal investigations, ethics complaints, whistleblowers who try to sound the alarm. And what happened to those whistleblowers? Many were fired, blacklisted, their careers destroyed while the machine kept running, kept pushing, kept demanding more. You see, there's a psychological phenomenon at play here, something that researchers call moral disengagement. It's what happens when we slowly, gradually, incrementally compromise our values until we can't even recognize ourselves anymore. For the employees on the front lines like Sarah, it started with one unauthorized account, then 2, then 10. Before long, it became routine, normal, just the way things were done. And I want you to understand something crucial here. These weren't evil people. They weren't cartoon villains twirling their mustaches. They were ordinary human beings, people with families, dreams, mortgages, fears, caught in a system that demanded they choose between their ethics and their survival. What would you have done? It's easy to say you'd never compromise. You'd walk away. You'd blow the whistle. But when it's your child's college fund on the line, when it's your career, your reputation, your ability to provide for the people you love, when everyone around you is doing it, when your manager is encouraging it, when the entire culture is telling you this is just how business works. That's the insidious nature of unethical cultures. They don't announce themselves with neon signs and warning bells. They creep in quietly, normalizing the unacceptable one compromise at a time. And at the top of this pyramid sat Carrie Tolstedt, reporting stellar numbers to the board, celebrating record growth, earning millions in compensation. Between 2010 and 2016, she made over $125 million. Her division was the crown jewel of Wells Fargo. But beneath the surface, something was rotting. September 2016. That's when everything came crashing down. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau dropped a bombshell. Wells Fargo had created approximately 3.5 million unauthorized accounts. Let that number sink in. 3.5 million. Fake checking accounts, fake savings accounts, fake credit cards, all opened without customer knowledge or consent. Customers were charged fees for accounts they never wanted. Their credit scores were damaged by credit cards they never applied for. Their trust, that most precious commodity in banking, was shattered. The fallout was swift and brutal. Wells Fargo was fined $185 million initially, though that number would eventually balloon to billions. Billions in penalties, settlements, and remediation costs. CEO John Stumpf was hauled before Congress, where Senator Elizabeth Warren eviscerated him on national television. "You should resign," she told him. "You should give back the money you took while this scam was going on. And you should be criminally investigated." He resigned a month later. And Carrie Tolstedt? She had already announced her retirement in July, just before the scandal broke, with a $125 million exit package. Convenient timing, don't you think? But the public wasn't having it. The outcry was deafening. How could someone who presided over such systematic fraud walk away with a golden parachute? How could the architects of this disaster escape while thousands of low-level employees, people like Sarah, lost their jobs? Wells Fargo eventually clawed back $75 million from Tolstedt and Stumpf. But the damage was done. You know what haunts me most about this story? It's not just the numbers, though they're staggering. It's not just the corporate greed, though it's infuriating. It's the ripple effects. Think about the elderly woman who discovered she had accounts she never opened and spent months trying to untangle the mess. Think about the young couple whose credit score was damaged right before they tried to buy their first home. Think about the employee who was fired for refusing to participate in the fraud, who tried to do the right thing and was punished for it. These aren't statistics. They're people, real people whose lives were disrupted, whose trust was violated, whose faith in institutions was shaken. And beyond the individual victims, think about the broader impact. Trust in banking, already damaged by the 2008 financial crisis, took another devastating hit. The implicit social contract between financial institutions and the public was broken. In 2020, The Department of Justice finally brought criminal charges against Tolstedt. She was charged with obstructing a federal investigation into Wells Fargo's fake accounts. In 2023, she was sentenced to 3 years probation and 6 months of home confinement. No prison time. For orchestrating a fraud that affected millions. Justice? You tell me. So what do we learn from this cautionary tale? What does the wreckage of Wells Fargo teach us about business, ethics, and human nature? When you create a system that rewards results without considering how those results are achieved, you're building a house on sand. Wells Fargo's 8 is great strategy wasn't inherently evil. But when it became an inflexible mandate divorced from customer needs, it became a recipe for disaster. As a leader, whether you're a CMO, a CEO, or a team manager, you must ask yourself, what behaviors am I incentivizing? What am I measuring? And more importantly, what am I not measuring? If you only measure sales and ignore customer satisfaction, loyalty, and ethical compliance, you're telling your team that those things don't matter. And people will listen. Lesson 2. The indispensability of ethical leadership. Carrie Tolstedt's greatest failure wasn't that she set ambitious targets. It was that she failed to be the moral guardian her role demanded. A chief marketing officer, or any C-suite executive, isn't just responsible for driving revenue. They're responsible for protecting the brand, and your brand is ultimately built on trust. The moment you sacrifice ethics for short-term gains, you've begun writing your own obituary. It might take months or years to be discovered, but the reckoning always comes. Ethical leadership means having the courage to say, these numbers don't look right. How are we achieving them? It means listening to the uncomfortable warnings from your team. It means valuing the whistleblower over the yes man. Lesson 3. Transparency as vaccine. Imagine if Wells Fargo had fostered a culture of radical transparency. Imagine if employees felt safe raising concerns. Imagine if regular, independent audits were conducted not as punishment, but as protection. The fraud couldn't have scaled to 3.5 million accounts. It would have been caught early, addressed, and corrected. Transparency isn't just about doing the right thing. It's about survival. In today's connected world, secrets don't stay secret. The question isn't whether unethical behavior will be discovered, but when. Lesson 4. The realism of goals. There's a fine line between ambitious and impossible. When you set targets that can only be achieved through cutting corners, you're not inspiring excellence. You're mandating compromise. Tolstedt and Wells Fargo leadership created a pressure cooker environment where failure was not an option. And when failure isn't an option, people get creative in ways you don't want them to. Set goals that stretch your team, absolutely, but ensure they're achievable through legitimate means. And if your people consistently can't hit targets, don't just crack the whip harder. Examine the targets themselves. Lesson 5. Accountability starts at the top. Here's a hard truth. Low-level employees lost their jobs. Thousands of them. They were fired, blacklisted, their careers destroyed. Meanwhile, the executives who created and perpetuated this system, they walked away with millions, facing minimal consequences. This sends a catastrophic message. The powerful are exempt from accountability. If we want ethical organizations, accountability must flow upward, not just downward. The person setting the impossible targets should face greater consequences than the person desperately trying to meet them. Lesson 6. Crisis management and redemption. Wells Fargo's initial response to the scandal was defensive and inadequate. They minimized. They deflected. They protected leadership while sacrificing frontline employees. Only under intense public pressure did they begin to take meaningful action: new leadership, cultural reforms, customer remediation. But here's the thing about trust. It takes years to build and seconds to destroy. Wells Fargo is still working to rebuild its reputation nearly a decade later. The lesson? Handle crises with immediate transparency, genuine accountability, and comprehensive remediation. Don't wait for the pitchforks to force your hand. So here we are, at the end of our journey through one of the most significant corporate scandals of the 21st century. But I want to bring this home to you personally. You might not be a CMO. You might not work at a major bank. You might be listening to this as a student, an entrepreneur, a manager, or someone just interested in business ethics. But this story matters to you. Here's why. Every single one of us will face moments in our careers, moments where we're pressured to compromise, where the easy path conflicts with the right path, where staying silent seems safer than speaking up. These moments define who we are. The Wells Fargo scandal didn't happen because of one decision by one person. It happened because thousands of people at every level made small compromises that accumulated into something monstrous. It happened because people thought just this once. It happened because people believed everyone else is doing it. It happened because people told themselves, I don't have a choice. But we always have a choice. Will it be easy? No. Will there be consequences? Possibly. Will you feel alone? Probably. But here's what I know with absolute certainty. Your integrity is the only thing that can never be taken from you. You can only give it away. And once it's gone, no amount of money, no title, no success can get it back. Carrie Tolstedt learned this the hard way. She had wealth, power, prestige, and she lost it all. But worse than that, she lost something irreplaceable. Her reputation, her legacy, her place in history as a leader people admired. Now, she's a cautionary tale, a symbol of corporate greed and ethical failure. That's her legacy. So ask yourself, what do you want your legacy to be? Do you want to be the person who had the courage to say, this isn't right? The person who protected others, even at personal cost? The person who built something sustainable, ethical, and truly great? Or do you want to be remembered as someone who knew better but did nothing? Who chose comfort over courage? Who put short-term gains over long-term integrity? The choice is yours. It always has been. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think, made you feel, made you question how you show up in your own professional life, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose between doing what was expected and doing what was right? What did you choose? What did you learn? And if you found value in this deep dive into one of the most important business ethics cases of our time, hit that like button. It helps me know you want more content like this. Stories that don't just inform, but challenge us to be better leaders, better colleagues, better human beings. Because here's the thing, we can't change what happened at Wells Fargo. We can't undo the harm to those 3.5 million customers. We can't restore the careers of the employees who were scapegoated. But we can learn. We can commit to doing better. We can build organizations where people don't have to choose between their ethics and their livelihood. We can create cultures where transparency is valued over politics, where whistleblowers are protected, not punished, where success is measured not just by quarterly earnings, but by the trust we've earned and the integrity we've maintained. That's the world I want to build. I hope you'll join me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being someone who believes that business can be and should be a force for good. Now go out there and prove it. Like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that matter. Because the next chapter, we're writing it together.